The beeping of the hospital machine still echoed in Adanna's mind. 1 week. That was all the time she had with her beautiful baby boy, Juma. His tiny fingers had wrapped around hers with such strength that she was certain he would grow up to be as resilient as his mother. She was wrong. Life had other plans, cruel ones. Adanna sat alone in the chapel of the funeral home. Her black dress wrinkled from the sleepless nights spent by her son's hospital bed. The small white casket at the front seemed to mock every dream she had ever had of motherhood. Through her tears, she kept checking her phone, hoping for a message, a call, anything from Kamau. Her husband should have been there an hour ago. The funeral director's sympathetic glances were becoming unbearable. "Mrs. Nwosu, should we?" He started, but she cut him off with a raised hand. "Just a few more minutes, please." Her voice didn't sound like her own anymore. It was hoarse from crying, from screaming into pillows, from begging God for answers that never came. The minutes ticked by like hours. The few friends and family members who had come to support her shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Her sister, Zuberi, squeezed her hand and whispered, "Adanna, we need to start." She nodded, feeling numb. That's when her phone finally buzzed. The message that appeared on her screen would forever change her life. "I never wanted this child. Don't try to reach me. I'm taking some time away." Her hands trembled as she read those words over and over. The chapel started spinning, but something inside her hardened. It wasn't just grief anymore. It was rage, pure and unstoppable. She stood up, her legs somehow finding strength she didn't know she had left. Later that evening, after everyone had gone home, she sat in her home office surrounded by the silence that seemed to scream at her. That's when the first email arrived. A mistakenly forwarded itinerary. Kamau and his secretary, Safia, were in Zanzibar. First-class tickets. A luxury resort. Romantic dinners by the beach. The dates showed they had left the day before the funeral. She stared at her computer screen, her mind racing through the past year. The late nights at the office. The business trips that seemed to multiply after she announced her pregnancy. The subtle changes in his behavior. It all made sense now, forming a picture so clear it felt like a physical blow. But what Kamau didn't know, what he had forgotten in his arrogance, was that she wasn't just his wife. Before they married, she had been his company's most brilliant financial analyst. She had stepped back to focus on starting their family, a decision that now felt like a cruel joke. With shaking hands, she opened her laptop and logged into the company system. Her old credentials still worked. Kamau had never thought to revoke them. As she began digging through files and financial records, a plan started forming in her mind. If he thought he could abandon their son and her without consequences, he was about to learn a devastating lesson. The sun was rising when she finally looked up from her screen. In front of her lay evidence of years of financial manipulation, cleverly hidden beneath layers of legitimate business. Kamau had been siphoning money into personal accounts, preparing for something. Now she knew what, or rather who he had been preparing for. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she hadn't used in years. "Amani, it's Adanna Nwosu." "Oz. Adanna. Yes, I know it's early. What's going on?" "Listen, I need your help with something at the company. How quickly can you get the board together for an emergency meeting?" The pieces were set. While Kamau was sipping cocktails on a beach with his mistress, she was about to remind him of something crucial. Never underestimate a woman who has nothing left to lose. The Nwosu Group headquarters stood tall against the morning sky, its glass facade reflecting the sunrise. Adanna smoothed down her navy suit, the one she had worn countless times during her analyst days, and walked through the revolving doors. "Mrs. Nwosu." The security guard's surprise was evident. "We weren't expecting you." "It's all right, Tund. The board is expecting me." She managed a small smile, remembering how he used to save her the best pastries from the lobby cafe when she worked late nights. The elevator ride to the executive floor gave her time to steady her nerves. In her bag was a file containing everything she had discovered during her sleepless night. Fake accounts, suspicious transfers, and a pattern of deceit that made her stomach turn. But what hurt more than the financial betrayal was finding emails between Kamau and Sophia dating back to before her pregnancy. Adanna. Amani stood waiting by the boardroom doors, her face a mixture of concern and determination. She had been Adanna's mentor when she first joined the company, and now, as head of legal, she was about to become her strongest ally. "Are you absolutely sure about this?" Adanna touched the locket around her neck, the one containing a tiny curl of Juma's hair. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." The boardroom fell silent as she entered. 12 pairs of eyes watched her take her seat at the head of the table, Kamau's seat. Most of them hadn't seen her since the baby shower 5 months ago, when she had been glowing with hope and excitement. Now she was a different woman entirely. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," Adanna began, her voice steady despite the thunder of her heart. "I apologize for the early hour, but what I'm about to share couldn't wait." She laid out everything: the fraudulent accounts, the embezzled funds, the carefully orchestrated deception that Kamau had built while she was focusing on their family. With each revelation, she could see the shock and anger growing on the board members' faces. "But why now?" Marcus, the eldest board member, asked. "Why are you bringing this to us today?" Adanna took a deep breath, steeling herself for what came next. "Because yesterday was my son's funeral. And while I was burying our child, Kamau was boarding a first-class flight to Zanzibar with his secretary, using company funds to finance their getaway." The silence that followed was deafening. Then chaos erupted. Questions flew from all directions, phones were pulled out, and urgent whispers filled the room. But Adanna remained calm, centered in the eye of the storm she had just unleashed. "There's more," she continued, pulling out another file. "As many of you know, I was one of this company's top analysts before I stepped back. What you might not know is that I never fully relinquished my role. I've been monitoring our financials remotely, maintaining a silent watch over the company's health. And I've developed a comprehensive plan to not only recover the embezzled funds but to strengthen our position in the market." Amani stood up, her legal pad covered in notes. "I've reviewed Adanna's findings and her proposed strategy. Solid. More than solid. It's brilliant. And given the circumstances, I believe we have no choice but to act immediately." The vote was unanimous. By noon, Kamau's access to all company accounts was frozen, and security was notified not to allow him entry to any company property. Adanna was appointed interim CEO pending a full investigation. Adanna, grieving the loss of her son Juma, discovers her husband Kamau's betrayal. While she mourns, Kamau is on a romantic getaway with his secretary, using company funds. Adanna uncovers financial manipulation by Kamau, including embezzled funds and deceitful activities. Armed with this evidence, she reaches out to her former mentor, Amani, and together, they convene the company's board. Adanna reveals Kamau's corruption and betrayal, including his affair and misuse of company resources. With her sharp analysis and comprehensive plan to recover the funds, she earns the board's support. The vote results in Kamau's removal from the company, and Adanna is appointed interim CEO. Her unwavering determination in the face of loss transforms her from a grieving mother to a powerful force ready to reclaim her life and her family's legacy.